Good morning. Um, it's about 8:19 in the morning, and so Grand Rising. Um, this I'm going to try to make this video as short as possible, but um, I would like to make people aware of narcissism and how it can run in families and the dangers of this, as well as outcomes and how to I guess I really haven't figured out how to beat it. I guess I just want to make everybody aware of my situation. I wasn't aware of what narcissism was until about a month ago. Growing up, I always knew I was different from my family. I was not like them. They were very low vibrational, and I always wanted more for my life. So I never really got along with them. And looking back now that I'm older, I can see very specific instances of being mistreated or lashed out against because I was different. For instance, one of my aunts um, would burn me with cigarettes. She claimed it was an accident, but like accidents happen like one, maybe two times, you know. Um, More than that, it's not random and it's not an accident. Um, so that was just one of like the little, one of the things that happened to me. I'm not going to say it was little because it was burning a child with a cigarette. So that's pretty messed up. So, um, you know, I always had a better relationship with my grandma. I always just contributed it to my mom was young when she had me, and her and my dad weren't married. So I just kind of um, made excuses for her, like, oh, she didn't get to live her life and she was still a teenager when she had me, even though she was 19 and she got pregnant with me to trap him. So, knowing he didn't want any more kids. So, but I always just made excuses for her. And, it's not like I didn't try to get along with my mom. I really did. But she was just so different from me. And it's not that I can't get along with people that are different from me. It's just she didn't want to become anything with her life. Being a, like at the bottom of the totem pole was fine for her. Prostituting was fine for her, you know. And then I received the backlash of that because I was her daughter. So people didn't respect my mom because of her choice of profession. So that automatically trickled down to me, you know, oh, that's Michelle's daughter. She's no good. She's a brat. Just because I would argue with my mom because my mom would be messed up on drugs all the time, like literally falling asleep while driving with me in the car. There was several times where I had to be like, Mom, and grab the wheel before we crashed. I was 7 or 8, at the oldest. Um, so, there was just a lot of things that I dealt with growing up that, I shouldn't really have had to have dealt with. And so, my biological dad wasn't in my life. He would send money here and there. He never paid child support regularly. Um, you know, the one thing he did for me was send me to summer camp one year and bought me a violin so I could play in the orchestra at school. And send like $100 to $200 for school clothes every other year. He never made regular, sorry, um, he never made regular child support payments to my mom. But I have two older half siblings that he supported. My sister got braces. See my teeth? They're really crooked. I never got braces. My brother they always had like the nice name brand clothes. They were the most popular kids in school. They went to the same school and lived in the same city their entire life. Me, I moved around from school to school. Um, I didn't have the nice clothes. My mom tried, and that's what she blames her prostituting on trying to give me a better life. Well, you know, that only goes so far, right? Um, so basically recently, I've been going through some things. I've posted some videos about how I'm being gang stalked and triangulated, and I'm a targeted individual. I believe that my mom's boyfriend had a big role in that. I also believe that my mother has knowledge of this or has something to do with it because I would tell her how I can connect her boyfriend to these weird things happening to me, being catfished on dating sites, have like knowing people that he claimed to not ever know, but he would always slip up and let something slip where, for instance, one of the guys I was dating, he claimed to never know him, but then come to find out he saved his dad in a bar fight. So how do you save someone in a bar fight? You know him that well to save him in a bar fight, but you don't know he has a son. I mean, just like really dumb things that, obviously were lies. And so I would tell my mom, I would go through all the weird things that have happened to me since the beginning. I'll put that in another video because it's really a lot, and I want to like write it down in point form so I don't sound like a blubbering idiot, and I don't have that prepared. So I next video I will have all of those things in point form in the order that they happened. But just for keeping this video to the point and not going off on that, I would explain to my mom, A through Z of how her boyfriend was involved or how I believed he was involved and the reasons why I thought he was involved and the evidence that I had to prove my theory. And she would listen to everything, and at the end of the conversations, she would agree with me, and she's like, "Oh, I just don't know what to do, Amra. I love you. You're my daughter." But then we would get back to his house, and it was like she never. It was just like whatever I said just went out the window. So after about 5 times of that happening, because I do know that she's on drugs, so I figured maybe she's just like that messed up on drugs that, she's just that spacey. So I would explain it to her. I think it was probably like 5 times I went through, point from A to Z, like I said. And after about the fifth time, I came to a conclusion after I watched, I don't know what the movie's called, but it's with Jason Statham. And it's where he's like, this little Korean girl gets kidnapped to count numbers for the gang, for this mafia. And she tells him that it's too much to be random, right? So I took that and I applied it to my life. So I came up with two conclusions with my mom. Either A, she's in on it and she's well aware of what's happening to me, or she's too stupid to understand and see, which she claims that she understood once I explained it to her. So that left me with the first option where she's in on it. And then I started thinking back to times in my childhood where um, I feel like my mom was pimping me out basically when I was a very young child. So the earliest time I can remember is when I was 4 years old and I was sent to go stay the night at a second cousin's house, and he was trying to have sex with me. He was a couple years older than me. Um, no penetration happened, but it's still like I was subjected to that. And then when he got caught doing things to me, I got spanked. Like I was in trouble. Like I did something wrong. I was 4 years old. My big cousin was telling me to do stuff. You know what I mean? I didn't know that I really had a choice, I guess you could say. Um, and I'm not putting all the blame on him. uh, I've lived my adult life with love and forgiveness, and so I'm past that now. But I'm just making you aware of, the earliest memories that I have. Okay, so there's that one. And then so not only did I get like punished for it, I was still allowed to continue to stay the night over at that cousin's house with like very minimal supervision. And so then the next thing I really remember is my mom dropping me off at a fam like a family friend's house, but the family friends, there was no children there. It was just adults. And the boyfriend of the woman who was supposedly watching me um, had already been accused of molesting another little girl. And no, I don't have any memory of anything actually specifically happening to me. I just remember falling asleep on the couch watching Little Mermaid, and, you know, who knows what happened to me in my sleep. I will say this, however embarrassing this is for me to admit now. My whole childhood, from before I can even remember up until I was about 13 or 14 years old, I peed the bed like almost every single night. And, um, it, so obviously something traumatic was happening to me in my sleep. And then when my little cousin was 5 and I was 8, his mom got a new boyfriend, and it was some dude she picked up at a karaoke bar, and he kind of seemed, a little feminine to me. I'm not saying anything about, I'm not trying to be hating on anybody. I'm just saying like what I noticed. So that was the first thing I noticed. And then he was allowed to take my little cousin shopping at the mall for 8 hours. 8 hours at a mall for a grown man to take a little 5-year-old boy. And he was buying my cousin all kinds of extravagant gifts. And so I remember um, me and my little cousin, grew up in the same house together. And I noticed that he started playing with me different. I would give him piggyback rides, and all of a sudden he would start touching my boobs and stuff. And I was 8, so like I really didn't have any boobs, but it was different. I could notice the change in him. So I immediately asked him, but the way I really went about asking him, I was 8, and I should have handled it better. But I kind of blurted it out while we were playing outside with a group of neighborhood kids. And just because, you know, I didn't handle it the best. I was 8. I didn't really know how the hell to do it. And I could tell when he told me no, he was lying to me. And then a couple of days later, we lived in like a split level duplex, and I was downstairs in the bedroom downstairs, and the mom's boyfriend came downstairs and tried to hand me a dollar bill. And I said, "What's that?" And he's like, "Oh, just take it." I forget his exact words, but I knew what the dollar bill was for. It was hush money to keep me quiet. And I said, "Listen," and I was a very mouthy 8-year-old. I told him, "You can take your dollar bill and shove it right up your ass, because you ain't buying my silence, and you ain't hurting my little cousin anymore. And there ain't nothing you can do or say to me to make me be quiet about this." And I took that information to my grandma. I don't think I told my grandma. I think I told my mom. And my mom just said, like, Amra, she just kind of played it off like nothing was happening until, um, so my mom made it seem like, oh, it was her idea, that she is the one that discovered it. Sorry, I got a cough. Sorry. So, then it came out that it was happening, and that kind of sent my family liked to play the victim. Like, they never wanted to take responsibility. They just always wanted to be, oh, have a pity party and to do things to get attention, right? So then they started all going to therapy and getting on Xanax. And so then, I was dealing with a bunch of pillheads and I was like the adult in the house all of a sudden. And so, um, you know, my mom was ended up getting on meth really bad, and um, she just was never around. Um, and she would do things like she would go to the bathroom. We had one bathroom in our house. She would go to the bathroom, she'd lock the door, and she'd sneak out the window and go out with her boyfriend's friends. Just like shady stuff like that. And um, that's not narcissism, but it's just to kind of show you like the type of people that they've always been in my whole life. So that boyfriend that she was with at the time, luckily, by the grace of God, he was a decent man. And he never once touched me inappropriately. He never once hit me. He never once, I mean, the worst he did was yell at me one time, and it scared the shit out of me. And like, I didn't ever want to have him yell at me again. And since I didn't have my real dad in my life, he took the role of that. He taught me how to drive. He took me fishing. We had a paper route together. He really took the role and stepped up to the plate to fill the void of what I needed in my life. And, I'm forever grateful. And, he passed away in 2012. So, again, whenever there's a death in the family or something tragic happens, the first thing that people do in my family is, oh, poor me. Oh, my mom, my husband died. I'm a widow. It's like, you can only, I understand that she's grieving, but you can only play that card so many times, especially when other people are grieving too. And the only reason why I questioned her authenticity about that was because he died in December. He actually died Christmas Day, 2012. We knew he was sick. He had a bad heart. It was a miracle he lived as long as he did. And instead of being grateful for the time that they had together, um, she just wanted to focus on like being heartbroken and pissed off that he left, right? Well, clearly it's not like he killed himself, it's not like he chose to friggin' go. And so I looked at it as like, he was in a lot of pain. He was miserable. He was swollen. He couldn't do sports. He was really like, he loved watching sports, but he loved watching them because he couldn't actually ever compete in them. He could never participate his whole life. He was born with a heart defect. So, I mean, he lived his life watching people do things that he wanted to do. He had two open heart surgeries, and he didn't want to go through another one. And, you know, he actually died with a smile on his face. Like he was happy, and he was not in pain anymore. So I took comfort in that, and I understand like that was my mom's husband and stuff or whatever, and they'd been together for 20 years, but like he was in my life that long. He was my dad, and so I just, you know, my family actually went through about so my great grandma died in 2008. 6 months later, her daughter, my grandma, died at the age of 59. Um, and then a year after that, I had a stillborn daughter, and that was very traumatic. And then that was in September 2010. And then in 2011, a very dear family friend passed away, which was my mom's best friend. And then in December 2012 is when my dad died. And then 6 months after that, my beloved uncle, my mom's little baby brother, well, he wasn't a baby, but he was the youngest. He died unexpectedly at the age of 38 years old under questionable circumstances. They ruled it a suicide, but there was no note. And the last conversation I had with him, he did not seem suicidal. He was actually apologizing for not making it to my daughter's funeral. And he was like, Amber, how are you able to go on after experiencing something like that? And, I told him about this dream that I had after I lost her, where my dead grandma visited me in my dream. And in my dream, I knew I was dreaming. And my uncle said, you're not bullshitting me, Amber. I said, no, Brad, I wouldn't lie to you, especially about something like that. And so that was the last conversation we had. And I think it was about a week or two later, he was dead. And so after all of those deaths in the family, it was like, we were all grieving, right? My uncle was my best friend, and but my mom would always try to get people's pity. Like she would meet a new person and she'd be like, "Oh yeah, I just lost my mom, my husband, my granddaughter, my brother." And it's like she wanted attention from that. And her sisters were kind of the same way. So I kind of felt like something was weird about that a little bit. Um, but I didn't really think too much of it because at that time I was on drugs myself, numbing my pain from losing my child and all of my family members, right? But I just went about it a different way. I turned to drugs because I figured like I'm not hurting anybody but myself, you know? So, um, that was my um, coping mechanism. So fast forward to 6 months after my dad died, right before my uncle died, my mom met a new boyfriend. And let's just say she would describe him to me. And I didn't want to meet him for the longest time because he sounded, and from just what I heard, he reminded me of my real biological father. And just a real piece of crap, like just into himself, self-absorbed, doesn't I mean just doesn't have the capacity to love another human being because he's so full of himself. And I didn't really want to meet him for the longest time. I'm not really sure about how long they were dating before I did actually meet him. Um, but then he has a pool, and so like I think it was probably like a year after they started dating, my mom's like, "Oh, come over and come swimming." He's gone at the bar. He goes to the bar every day. So come on over and you can go swimming, blah blah blah. And so I went swimming, and then he showed back up from the bar and I had to meet him. At my first meeting, um he seemed, just he reminded me of like just somebody that's very full of themselves, just like I thought. But I gave him the benefit of the doubt, and I was honestly giving it a chance, because my mom seemed happy, and I didn't want to be, the Debbie Downer or the pessimist that was trying to come between their relationship or whatever. So I got to know him, and I noticed that my mom again was always trying to play the victim. Like she would always nitpick with me certain arguments, and then she'd run to him and let him listen to voicemails or put him on the phone when I started cussing her out after she pushed my buttons to like the point of, I don't like to talk to my mom like shit, but sometimes, when she's talking shit to me about how I'm still married, legally married, and I'm cheating on my abusive ass husband because I couldn't get a divorce legally because I had to reestablish residency. Like all it wasn't because I was cheating on my husband or stepping out on him. We were legally separated, and I had to jump through legal hoops
in order to be able to get a divorce. And I was seeing someone else. It wasn't like what she was trying to claim it was. And I flipped out on her, because I am a hothead too, and me and her never got along really. And I just, was like, fuck you, bitch, and put her in her place. Well, she would give him the phone. So he would hear me talk to her like that. And then he'd try to defend my mom. Well, I could see that if he was like a decent person and totally what's the word? Like his nose was completely clean. But he's talking shit around town about how she's a big crackhead and she's a crank whore and talking so much mad shit about my mom. It's like disrespecting her. It's like, she was my mom. I think at that point I was what, like 27, or maybe no, I was probably like 29 or 30. And so, she'd been my mom for 29 to 30 years. And I'm not saying that people should talk to their mom that way, but my situation was a little bit different. Um, Obviously very unique. And, you know, I'm not proud of that, but it's like, I could only take so much. And so he's trying to tell me to watch my mouth and don't disrespect my mom, but he's turning around and talking shit behind her back to all these people at the bar that he goes to every day. And so, I told him he needs to stay out of me and my mom's arguments and keep his nose out of our business because it does not belong, and he does no business sticking his nose in our fights. Well, there was a couple other incidences between me and him, um, like physical altercations where he was getting in my face, he spit in my face, just very aggressive behavior. He's like a 70-year-old man, okay? And I don't have any males in my family since, my uncle died, my dad died, or whatever. So nobody was sticking up for me. There's this man that's trying to come at me and fight me like a dude, okay? And yeah, I can have a mouth on me, but I'm still a woman, okay? He should not have been coming to me trying to fist fight me and shit. So, I'm not going to back down and I'm not going to show him that I'm scared of him and give him that satisfaction. So I stepped up to him too, and I just wouldn't back down. And that was like, disrespectful to him. And then there was a time when me and my boyfriend were breaking up and fighting a lot. And so he said, "Oh, you can come stay in my basement, until you get a job. You don't have to pay any rent, blah, blah, blah. Get your life together." And, I was appreciative of that. Um, but then he started like talking to me about how my mom is blowing this dude and that dude off of Facebook. And, you know, I told him, I'm like, "Listen, Bill, I understand, you and my mom are having some problems, but whether she is or isn't blowing these dudes off of Facebook, I don't care to know my mom's sex life. Like, that's just, please leave me out of that, respectfully." I was like, if that's what's happening, that's messed up, but I prefer not to know that stuff. If you could just leave me out of it, I would appreciate it. And so I think that um I'll come back to that. Hopefully I can remember. Okay, so then I find out that him and my mom started smoking crack together. And my mom would tell me that when he was high on crack, he would get really, like, he was a sick sexual man, and he would want to watch her have sex with black dudes. Not that black dudes are gross. I'm not saying nothing about that. I'm not racist. I love everybody. We're all humans. We're all on this planet trying to make it together. So please don't think that I'm a racist. It's just that was what he would prefer, to watch my mom have sex with black dudes. And so um, then there was a time where my mom was all messed up on Xanax, and he had someone come and sodomize my mother while she was passed out. And when I found out about that, you better believe that I had some choice words for him. And I text messaged him and I said, I hope someone treated your mother the way that you're treating mine. And if I ever hear of you doing that again, or I said, the next time you want to stick someone's dick in anybody's asshole, it better be your own. And if I ever hear of you doing that to my mother again, I will fucking kill you. End text message, sent it, never got a response back from him. Didn't really care. That's how I felt, you know? I don't care how much me and my mom fight. Nobody's going to disrespect my mom like that. Okay? I don't give a fuck who you are. You know, that's still my mother. She still brought me into this world, and I will not be hearing stories of her being sodomized by anyone for any fucking reason. And then he's recording it too. That's just sick. So now back to oh, and then me and my mom did catch one of her sisters over there. So he fucked one of her sisters. Excuse my French. You know, I cuss. If you don't like it, you don't have to watch me. That's fine. So anyway, we we caught one of her sisters over there, busted him out, and then so back to when I lived in his basement, and he was telling me all these sick things about my mom sucking all these dicks or whatever. Now that I know how he is, I believe he was high on crack, and I believe that was like he was getting off on telling me these things, and I think that he thought that I would come on to him because I would get hot by that. And he's the type of person that, since I didn't come on to him, he saw that as like a sign of ultimate disrespect. And nobody disrespects him. You know, he talks about himself in the third person. So that was another thing that I had against me that he does not like. So fast forward to now, and him and my mom been doing, my mom stayed with him, and after a while, she's crying wolf, telling me he's doing this and that, blah blah. It's like after you continue to stay with him, it's like you must like it too, because you're going along with it and you're allowing it to happen, right? So then I quit getting in the middle of their stuff. But fast forward to now, and it's like the aunt that he slept with is living in the basement. My mom's okay with that. I told my mom, I'm like, they're still screwing, right? Like when you leave to go to the store, you don't think that they're not screwing. I said, you're stupid if you don't think that that is happening. You know, um, she doesn't care. Um, so basically, where we're coming to present day time, 10 years after they've been together, is there's been attempts made on my life. I was still on drugs, and um, he became friends with my ex-husband. And my ex-husband told me, "Oh, I had a dream that somebody gave you some bad drugs." The next day, I almost died. I was in the hospital for a week. Um, then in person, he told me, he's like, when I first met Bill, I saw the devil. Then he would text message me, the devil's been after your soul for the last 8 years. And that's how long him and my mom had been together at the time. Which, I already could feel that. Like I could feel I was under constant attack. I mean, I was homeless. Or first I went to jail. I lost every relationship I've ever been in has ended as soon as they meet my mom's boyfriend. It ends like that. Um, so, they've even seduced some of my male friends to have, he wanted to watch them have sex with my mother. So it's like they had no boundaries. And sorry, my lip gloss is getting kind of weird. So he always said like, "Oh, girl, I love your mother. I've got you covered. I'll help you with whatever you need." He's never helped me with a fucking thing except for letting me live in his basement for like a month, and it was very uncomfortable. Um, so he always says I'm covered financially. He's never once helped me financially, ever. Um, and then when I was, after I had a bad breakup, I got illegally kicked out of the house and I had nowhere to stay. So I was living in a tent down by the river. Well, my aunt that slept with my mom's boyfriend was also homeless and living in a tent down by the river. So I thought that if I went there, I would be safe, you know, because her and my cousin were there. No, they tried to pimp me out uh, for drugs. At first, I'm not a criminal, and so I seen things. I didn't understand what it was, right, when it was happening for a couple of times. Like, um, one of my cousin's friends showed up at the camp and he gave my cousin a bag of dope. And then I needed to charge my phone because it was dead. And he's like, oh, this is my buddy Dan. He's a great guy. He's like, Dan's like, I can tell you're not under the bridge people. And, I'm a really decent guy. David will vouch for me. If you need to charge your phone, if you need to take a shower, you can come up to my place. I have an apartment up on top of the hill. You're more than welcome to crash on the couch or my bed, and I'll sleep, in another room. You don't have to worry about nothing with me. And, you know, I fell for it. And the first time I went with him, nothing did happen. But then the like the following times it did happen. Not that he raped me or anything, but um, I had sex with him willingly, but it was under the impression that, he liked me and he wasn't having sex with other people and that, you know, something was going to come of it. And so after about the second or third time, I started, and then the way he would treat me afterwards was like I was just some prostitute on the street. And I never done that before. So I became more aware of my surroundings and what was going on. And just a lot of weird things happened to me down at the river. And my aunt knew about it, and my cousin knew about it. And I told my mom what was happening, what her sister was doing. And my mom's like, oh, Amber, your aunt is not going to do that to you. Trust and believe when I say I know what was happening to me, whether I was on drugs or not, which I was at the time. I still know what was happening. And I'm not crazy, and I don't hallucinate, and I don't make shit up, and I don't lie. So that's what was happening. And so then I started getting catfished on dating sites. And when I told my mom that her boyfriend was hiring these dudes to like catfish me, she told me, you just need to get off fuckbook and quit trying to get dick all the time. Like, because I'm trying to find someone to be in a relationship with, because I'm trying to find love. That means I can't date because her boyfriend's a fucking sicko and is trying to, um, I didn't know it at the time, and I still don't really have proof of it, but my belief is that these dudes were hired by him to catfish me on Facebook, pretend to have relationships with me, and tape our sexual rendezvous or sexual, um, encounters. And I believe that they were selling them on the dark web or some site. They were profiting. Basically, they were profiting off of what I was thinking was an intimate sexual time between me and somebody I was in a quote unquote relationship with. Relationships never lasted long, and I started noticing a pattern. So once I started putting two and two together, and then I was being gang stalked and everything, and everywhere I go, people look at me like they know me, and they just look at me really weird. And so I'm like, actively trying to find these videos because I know that they exist. I don't know how I know for certain. I just feel it in my heart that they do. Um, so right now I'm just trying to find the evidence that I need to bring justice for myself because I didn't deserve any of this. Just because my mom got with some sick sexual deviant, and he, maybe my mom always was just sick herself sexually, but I wasn't. And I'm not claiming I'm perfect, but I've never pimped anyone out. I've never recorded anyone against their will. I've never sold any pornographic ish type material of any of my family members or friends. And I just feel like my personal rights have been infringed upon. And I want justice. And, when they're gaining monetary, when they're receiving monetary gain for basically um, exploiting me. Yeah, I may be an adult, but I'm still being exploited. And I called it human trafficking. And then there's a whole other spiel there too, because I went to the emergency room and I told them, they ask you if you're safe at home, and I told them I wasn't. I wasn't safe. And I told them what was happening to me. And they told me I was crazy. And they got a 48-hour emergency hold for claiming that I was severely mentally ill. And they got this on a Saturday. And the piece of paper was a fraudulent piece of paper. There was no judge's signature. There was no time stamp. Usually, when they e-file a document to the court, it'll have a different font at the top saying e-filed this day at this time. It did not have that. It did not have the electronic judge's signature, and it did not have a court seal uh, stamp on it. It just basically, and then the lines were all messed up on it. So it looked like they took a template of something else and just changed the names and gave me this document. And they held me against my will at Broadlawns Hospital. And then, sorry, I got to get a drink. Hold on one second. Okay, sorry. Um, so, so basically, that happened, and then I got into some court trouble. Well, they put me on probation, and I never had. The first time I met my probation officer, um, I met him in person. I talked to him on the phone, set up my initial appointment, and when I got there, he said, "Oh, your mom's boyfriend doesn't like you very much, does he?" I had never mentioned my mom's boyfriend to him yet at that point. Yeah, I did after that, but at that time, I had never brought him up. And he's like, "Oh, don't worry, nobody's calling in on you or anything. And even if they did, I wouldn't listen to them because people do that all the time." So that made me very suspicious. And then, um, I mean, there's other things too, but basically, right now, I have a feeling that um, they're behind the gang stalking, and they think that I'm weak or whatever because they know, like, it's been going on for 2.5 years now. So some days I can handle it good, some days I don't, and some days, I'm not even joking, I've been close to like just killing myself because I see that's the only way out. I wanted to leave the city and the state, but I'm on probation, fictitious probation, so I can't. That's not an option. And so um, right now, I believe that they're hoping that I kill myself, um, because I believe that they have a life insurance policy on me. And so I just would like to make everyone aware that, if God forbid something does happen to me, that this is all documented. So thank you for listening. I know this video is really super long. I didn't intend for it to be, but just, you know, I just wanted to put my story out there, and maybe somebody else will relate, and maybe this will help somebody else identify what's going on in their life. And if I help someone else, then I've done my job, right? So thank you for listening, and I will get that point form, of all the things my mom's boyfriend has done from A to Z, and probably be uploading that later. But thank you for listening. Have a great day. Peace.